finding purpose and hope with global citizenship. That's what I'd like to talk about today. And you may have heard me say in promoting this event that I'm both half excited and half nervous. I'm excited because it's amazing to be able to speak with such a broad range of teachers from all over the world. I always love these sessions with Macmillan, hearing a lot about your lives in the chat, being asked difficult questions about how we can really deliver this in the classroom. It really enriches my own work in this area. And this idea as well that for the next hour or so, we're all together, all talking about the same issue. And for all that's wrong with the world, I think we should all just take a moment to think about how wonderful that really is, how different everyone on this call is, and yet we've all come here to share our common interest in the next generation, in change, and in leaving the world just that little bit better than we found it. So that's my excitement. And my nervousness is because my abstract for this talk was uniquely vague and uniquely ambitious. And I have to be honest, I've been worrying about it ever since I first came up with the idea. Finding purpose and hope with global citizenship is a pretty tall order. I may as well have taken on the meaning of life. But let me tell you why I wanted to talk about this. I've given a number of talks from Macmillan on global citizenship in ELT, and I've really focused on the practicalities. So how we can break it down into learning outcomes, how to integrate it into everyday ELT tasks without compromising your curriculum, and so on. And they're all available on Macmillan's website, by the way. And I particularly recommend my partner in crime, Jonathan Hadley, who's an amazing English language teacher, and he can give super practical tips on how you can integrate all this very easily into the classroom. But aside from that, I feel like I've neglected the why, that personal motivation for a teacher to take on global citizenship. I've personally come to understand that this is even more important than the practicalities, because when we know why we're doing something, everything else falls into place. We know this from any endeavor we've ever been truly successful in. Knowing your why, knowing what's driving and motivating you, will carry you through all the setbacks, the failures, and the disappointments. Because making change is hard, and easy just doesn't enter into it. I guarantee at some point or another, when you look out on the world and you ask yourself, what can I contribute? How can I change things for the better? What can I give? You will hear a dark little voice whispering, it's just no use. Things are out of control now. The natural and the unnatural disasters, the bleak forecasts of the future are daily reminders of our inhumanity to each other. The tide can feel too great and our contribution too small. But I believe that our personal purpose can carry us through, and that sometimes all we need is just a little fire, a little encouragement, what Zarina and Harry referred to as that spark, that little inspiration to get us back into the game. That we will not give in, that we will not hide away in our living rooms with our TikTok and our Netflix, and that we can make the world a better place. That each of us has something special to contribute to those around us, something that is truly unique to us, and that if we don't do it, it simply won't happen. So I don't want to talk to you today as a researcher of global citizenship. I really want to try and talk to you as a friend, as Matt, to reach out across these pixels and chat to you as if we were having an informal conversation. I really want us to encourage and re-inspire each other to commit to the ideals of global citizenship. So, with that being said, here are a few things my friends would know about me. First up, I love superhero movies. I'm also the father of 2 firecracker girls, aged 4 and 1. My personal hero is Robert Kennedy, and I work in education because I believe that it will save us, that it's one of the most beautiful parts of our humanity, because at its center, it's about helping another human being discover who they really are, unlocking what makes them unique, what they can bring to the world, and what will make them happy in life. But I'd love to hear from you. What about you? Why do you work in education? Why do you teach? I've set up a little poll here, which is live. You just go to slido.com, you put in that code, and then you can enter in your response there, and the screen will automatically update. So go and have a little look at that. I'd love to hear why you teach. Why do you work in education? So just a reminder, you need to go to slido.com and put in that code that you can see on the screen on the left-hand side. And as you put your responses in, they'll start to appear on the screen. Here we go, we've got our first participant typing away. Thank you. It's how I can change a bit of the world. I love that reply. The idea that it doesn't have to be about changing the whole world, a bit of the world, I think is exactly the way to look at it. I believe in kiddos, amazing. Helping others achieve their goals. And I think that point is really important, by the way. Some of this talk will be very personal to me, but I really want to be clear that global citizenship education is a lot about finding what matters to the individual, whether that's you as a teacher or as children themselves as well. So hopefully we'll share this after the call as well. But I just want to highlight here that just have a look at all these answers coming through. I really hope this gives you optimism and shows you how amazing the community of teachers that you are a part of are. It's something truly special, and you can see the passion amongst the community. So again, apologies, I have to move on, but I will record these later on. So keep putting your replies in because I'll capture them later. So we know why you teach, but why should you teach global citizenship? Well, to answer that, I think we need to identify your personal entry point to global citizenship, why it matters to you, and which issues you would like to address, and which issues your students would like to address. So let's do that by looking, first of all, at what global citizenship seeks to achieve at a comprehensive level. A few weeks ago, the Deputy Secretary General for the UN spoke to young people at a global citizenship event. This is what she said to frame the problems that global citizenship must address. Let's tell it like it is. Our world is in big trouble, and we are facing crisis after crisis. People are hurting, and our planet is burning. Hunger is rising, and we are getting much more unequal. War is raging, and human rights are under attack. So, although that's from the United Nations, that still remains one perspective, but it shows you just how vast the areas that global citizenship could address are. So to try and get a little bit, narrower into that and find your personal entry point, I'd like to ask you now what you think the biggest problem facing humanity is, and therefore one that global citizenship education might help to address. So again, if you go into Slido, you may already be there. It's the same code as before. You should see that question there, and put your answers in, and we'll have a little look. Global warming. Fun enough, in the last session, that also came up first. Lack of solidarity, absolutely. Humanity itself, very fair. One superpower, absolutely. Some amazing answers. So I hope you can see that we all have different entry points to global citizenship, different passions that we really care about. And the same will be true for our students as well. Let's just look at the range there between jobs, inequality, selfishness, insecurity, social changes, consumption. What an amazing array of thoughts there. For me, and I'm not suggesting this be your motivation, it's really my personal one, I strongly believe that our biggest problem is that we are squandering individual human potential. To me, this is the one problem that cuts across all the others. And I passionately believe that dedicating ourselves to addressing this problem can change the world. It's why I believe education is so important, and why I believe you as teachers are so important. I'm sure that you're all making a positive personal impact to the world, whether that's making changes to a more sustainable lifestyle or taking action on social issues you care about. But I believe that one of the biggest impacts you can ever have as a teacher is in your role shaping the next generation. Because if humans can change, the world can change. And that's really it, by the way. That's my whole talk. So I'll just that is what I really want to talk about today. But let's go a little bit deeper. So from my perspective, if it's all about the next generation, let's talk about the next generation. What does the world look like to them at the moment? Well, this is an incredibly tough time in human history and a tough world to grow up in. We've talked a bit about the scale of our challenges, but imagine being confronted by those every day, just as you're getting to know the world, just as you're growing up. 60% of young people are worried about the future, feeling afraid, anxious, and powerless. But we're not equipping them for this. Our global education system is still stuck in the mindset of the early 20th century that takes a comparative, prescriptive approach to education. As a result, our education system is losing relevance in an era of constant change. We're just not giving students the ability to think, to learn, and evolve no matter what the challenges that await them. And education has become a zero-sum game, built around winners and losers. This single-minded focus on grades has undermined the broad and balanced education that should be offered to all young people, and is leaving far too many categorized as failures just because they don't excel in exams. Looking at these stark assessments, I was reminded of a line from one of my favorite films, Cinema Paradiso. Sooner or later, a time comes when it's all the same, whether you talk or not, so you might as well shut up. We have got to address this sense of powerlessness amongst children and uplift those kids that are being left behind. This is what global citizenship education can do, by giving teachers a framework to empower children, developing skills like critical thinking and cross-cultural communication, and presenting children opportunities to engage with the global issues that matter to them, giving them agency and giving them hope. Here's a story that will cheer you. The late, great Ken Robinson, who many of you may know from his incredible TED Talk, and if you haven't watched it, please do. I'm sure we'll put the link in the chat later on. Used to tell a wonderful story of a little girl who was in a drawing lesson. She was 6 and she was in the back of the classroom drawing. The teacher said she hardly ever paid attention in other classes, but in the drawing lessons she did. The teacher was fascinated and went over to her and asked, "What are you drawing?" To which the girl said, "I'm drawing a picture of heaven." The teacher said, "But nobody knows what heaven looks like." And the girl replied, "They will in a minute." Isn't that wonderful? The point to that is that children are filled with so much potential. And so are grown-up ones as well. Humans in general are awesome. And I think that's a message that can carry us through some of those more bleak assessments that I talked about at the start. If we're looking for hope, our fellow humans are where we'll find it. I want to show you a little clip from a TV show here in the UK a few weeks ago. It's called Question Time, and it's basically general members of the public asking questions of politicians. And I won't give any further introduction.
And personal experience, literally on Saturday, my son was at a party. It was a diverse group of kids, different backgrounds, different races, having a party. The place, somebody tried to attack the house. The father got assaulted. One of the girls got assaulted. Police took an hour or so to get back. That's not even the end of it. He's on his way home. 4 kids, 3 kids are black, 1 is white. They're running for a bus. The police come out of nowhere, handcuff 2 of the boys. My son comes jogging after to try to calm it down. You wouldn't be surprised to know that the 2 kids that got arrested or handcuffed were the black kids. The white kid who was there with them as a friend didn't get questioned, didn't get asked.
Okay, right.
My son, my son then gets handcuffed. They find out he's 16 years old. They check his ID. He's devastated and traumatized from it all. They still kept him in handcuffs for 40 minutes afterwards. He's 16 years old. Right. Now, again, Wilf, you made a mention about mistakes. I understand mistakes. I get mistakes. But there are ramifications for the kind of mistakes you make. I'm a father. If I make a mistake, it affects my community. It affects those who look up to me. All right? Certain mistakes, you got to be mindful. You have to be mindful. Certain mistakes have massive ramifications. What this does to my son, to his friends, to my girls that were there watching, to my wife who's fighting in her job to try and change diversity and inclusion in our society, it makes a massive difference. Sorry. So he's got a hell of a task ahead of him.
I just find that absolutely incredible. I wanted to give you an example of how amazing everyday humans are. And I really didn't need to look far. I just watched that last week on TV, and there were so many other examples I could have chosen as well. In our society, it's so easy for us to raise up people to become almost these mythical heroes, Malala and Greta. But being a global citizen, just being a human, isn't always about grand action. It can be something as brave and as powerful as showing up and making your voice heard. I find it amazing to imagine that father waking up the morning after his son was wrongfully arrested and thinking, what can I do? It wasn't an accident that he went to that TV show a few days later and asked that question. He cared, and he cared not just about his son, but about the society he lives in. Absolutely extraordinary. So let's bring it back to global citizenship and this idea running throughout everything I've shown about individual human potential and how we unlock it. There are many different definitions of global citizenship, but the way I see it, we should view global citizenship education as a guide for the holistic development of a young person. And in the end, it's incredibly simple. Really, global citizenship education is about the two halves of education that we all know of. On the one hand, global citizenship is about helping young people become kind and useful human beings. On the other, it's about helping them find a profession they can flourish in. That's why those elements of global citizenship around critical thinking, entrepreneurship, innovation are just as important as those about social issues, because we need our children to have purpose and we need them to have flourishing, successful lives. And across all of these, it's about helping our children become the best versions of themselves. And I think this is what you can do as teachers. We could talk for hours about how to embed critical thinking, how to bring project-based learning into ELT, which UN Sustainable Development Goals you could address in the classroom. But I'd personally like you to take away just 3 things. Firstly, think about how you can awaken your students' imagination, encouraging them to think and to really question. Secondly, think about the ways in which you can prepare them for the future, not just the next few years and succeeding in their exams, succeeding in education and finding a job, but also the decades ahead. Helping them understand, for example, how they learn, so that when they need to upskill mid-career, which they most probably will need to, they have the backing from that early education with you. And third, show them that what they do matters, that they are not powerless and that they are not unheard. I hope you don't mind me briefly sharing my personal project. I'm putting so much of my personal beliefs and aspirations into this project. It really stems back, actually, funnily enough, to a Macmillan talk a few years ago, where a teacher asked me, this is all very good, but how do we recognize what kids are doing? How do we give some value to all of this activity? And that's what I'm trying to do with this platform that I call Citizens, basically creating profiles as portfolios that showcase all the amazing things that our young people are doing, mapped to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And my hope in doing that is it will then allow us to start connecting youth civic action globally. And won't that be amazing when we can show kids that they're not the only one making these small changes? They are joined by thousands, most likely millions of students, of fellow students all over the world doing the same. And I believe that can be empowering and affirming. So if we can think of global citizenship in the way that I framed it in this talk, as encompassing both personal development and civic action on social issues, what areas would you particularly like to help your students with? Going back to some of those problems that we talked about, would it be social justice? Would it be inclusivity? Would it be climate change, mental health, resilience, confidence? I'd love to hear what you think, and if you found your personal entry point to global citizenship, or maybe you already know it. Please, again, just go to Slido to do that. Personal development. Thank you very much. I hope I persuaded you. Voicing their opinions. That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Great critical thinkers. I have to be honest, I think critical thinking is probably one of the most important parts of global citizenship, because so much follows from that, and it allows us to be confident in saying that we are not prescribing actions to our teenagers, we're helping them find their own way. Thank you so much for sharing those ideas. I'm very conscious of my time, so I just want to leave you with some final thoughts. This is you. Now, I imagine you teach about 30 students a year. Imagine if you could impact just 6 of those students, only 6, really touch them, create that spark in them that helps them find their area of passion, their area of interest. Now, imagine you can do that not just this year, but next year with a new cohort of students, and the year after that, and the year after that. Whether you've opened their minds to injustice, encourage them to create a project on a cause they care about, or simply encourage them to pursue their passions, whether they're the arts or sports or creative writing, whatever it may be. Just think of this impact that you could have over the course of your career, this little ripple as a teacher. Now imagine on this call, we have hundreds of other teachers all over the world. Imagine if they have the same impact all over the world from, I think we've got Ukraine, Bolivia, Peru. I saw Somalia in the chat earlier. And then each of those actions creates a ripple because you've not just impacted that one student, they've gone on to impact others. This is what Robert Kennedy, that hero I mentioned at the outset, described as ripples of hope that can build a current to change anything. And if you want evidence for how humans can change, you only need to look to our past. We have shown that we have the capability to change, and I believe we can in the future as well. So finally, I'd like to leave you with this. Nothing can resist the will of a people that will stake even their existence on the extent of their purpose for good. I truly believe that. I hope you do too. Thank you very much.
Lovely stuff there, Matt. Don't disappear. Oh, I thought you'd gone away for a second there.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I just like, he's run away. Don't run away. I've got a question. Critical thinking, you touched on it very briefly, and it's something that is absolutely key to, I think, everything really. You know, we look at the desires for employers nowadays, and it's up there on like right at the top of the list of, you know, along with empathy as well for things, for people going into a new job. I was wondering if you could kind of give maybe a quick tip for how to get critical thinking into your classes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for asking me. Yeah. So a practical example that I think I've given before with my friend Jonathan Hadley is we looked at different news outlets' coverage of the climate crisis. I think particularly we looked at the Paris Accords when President Trump was withdrawing from them. And you could use that as a way to build language skills, but also to draw out critical thinking by trying to get students to think about, why does this particular news outlet cover it this way? What's their agenda? What's their objective? You know, what's the backstory to this? Why does one think it's good, one think it's bad? And I think that, to me, I hope is a good example of where you can totally do this in the English language classroom, and so some of these high ideals can be delivered in an everyday way.